Hi, my name is Zach Bruckroff. My partner for the simulation was Tyler Adams. Last week we did finally achieve the goal of $8 million for our cumulative profit. Definitely learned a lot from the simulation. It was definitely eye-opening this week versus the first time we started it. Definitely figured out how exactly to improve a company's maximum profit. And probably the hardest thing with this was balancing profit versus customer satisfaction. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later in this video. So this first thing, our marketing strategy for this was basically we were really trying to push catering only to segment A and kind of D, I guess, a little bit, but really just our large distributors in segment A, because those were the ones that were buying the most product and spending the most money. Segment C was really just our new customers, and from learning in class, it really didn't make much sense to cater to segment C as much because they were our new customers. So that was kind of how we executed achieving the $8 million. The customer needs, of course, segment A was the ones that wanted the power to size ratio, and we found that it was really easy to satisfy them versus somebody like segment B who only wanted thermal resistance, and after a little bit of trial and error, it seemed that no matter how much money you put into that, they were still never going to be satisfied. So then I kind of just figured out that instead of putting a whole bunch of money into that, I kind of just left that alone because they really weren't buying as much product as somebody like segment A. Yeah, understanding each segment of this simulation was huge. If you didn't do your homework a little bit and study up on each of these things, you definitely weren't going to make as high of a profit as you probably could have. Like I said earlier, segment C, when you read up on them, they're really just our new customers. Therefore, I'm not going to spend much time on them just because they're not going to spend as much money. And it seemed like they were always satisfied no matter what you did because they had no idea what the company did since they're brand new customers. If you look down here, obviously our most trial and error runs were definitely in the quarters between 2012 and 2014. When I finally started to figure out was we wanted to bump the prices up, but also improve the quality of our product. So once we finally started to make a little bit of money in 2014 going on in 2015, that's when we finally bumped our price. I think I bumped my price up to about $150, which was right around the competitor's price too. So it was a good competitive price, but I think the biggest thing was putting more money into training and power to size ratio in our product, and I think that's what really brought it home. Yeah, when I put the price higher, really the only segment that didn't agree with that was segment D, but we also gave them a pretty hefty discount. I think it was about 20%, which, let's see, look at that here a little bit. The prices. Yeah, I gave D a considerable discount, considering they were only paying about $120 versus somebody like segment C, who I gave a 0% discount to, paying the full $150. The reason I'm discounting D so much is because they're still price sensitive, and it seemed that the lower I dropped their price, the more they would buy my product. And that was kind of a learning experience, just because you don't know, especially when you're starting a company, you don't know exactly what segments to cater to more. It seemed that D was still spending quite a bit of money on the product, especially after I dropped their price a little bit, versus somebody like segment C. It doesn't matter how much you drop their price, they're still going to buy the product, just not as much of it. And the same thing with our small customers. Segment A, we dropped their price a little bit, not too considerably though, just because they were still looking for a quality product and were willing to pay the price for it. Yeah, definitely another challenge with this again was trying to find a balance between making a profit and customer satisfaction. It's hard to do both, especially within starting a company, just because it's hard to satisfy everybody, but you're only going to make a profit if you have satisfied customers, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. So this simulation definitely helped out with that. Yeah, another hard thing was balancing expenses and revenues in order to increase our net income. We had quite a bit of an expense here, but I also figured out that you really didn't have to put that much money into certain things in order to get a bigger net income. Probably the biggest thing I was spending money on was customer training, strictly because I only had 5 employees by the end of the simulation, and I'm not sure what everybody else did, but that definitely helped me achieve a bigger profit. It seemed that customers were more satisfied with well-trained employees versus having something like 10 or 11 employees that takes away money from being able to train them properly. Another big thing was putting money into market research. Obviously, I'm gonna focus more on segment A, which is what I did. By the end of it, I was almost at 30% is what we were putting into them, versus somebody like segment B. And what I mean by that, if we go to customer purchases here, yeah, segment B, I mean, they were spending less than $7,000 on this, versus segment A, who by the end of it was spending 33 grand, which is a considerable profit for us. Therefore, I'm going to focus on them more. A huge thing I learned with this simulation, and also in class, was catering to our long-term investors versus our small investors and our new customers. I'm pretty sure I had about 90% in our returning customers, and only really, it might have even been 95, and I only put about 5% into our new customers, because again, like I said earlier, they're going to buy our product no matter what, but they're really not going to make us as much money, because we want to spend more time trying to obtain customers versus trying to gain new ones. As far as this simulation goes, I'm actually really satisfied with it. I kind of just wish it would have been a little more detail oriented, just because it'd be kind of cool to make bigger decisions and stuff like that. I'm sure there's a simulation out that's a little more detail driven than this one, This seems to be more of an introductory simulation, but other than that, I actually learned more from it than I thought I would, and it was really fun to play around with, and I definitely think that this could be helpful to anybody who's trying to get into figuring out how to market a product. Thank you very much.